Okay guys, in this video we're just going to be comparing three different cameras. Those cameras are going to be the Canon R7, the Sony ZV-E10 and the Sony a7 IV. Let's get into it. Okay guys, so like we just mentioned, we are going to be reviewing three different cameras in this video today. And those cameras are going to be the Canon R7, the Sony a7 IV and the Sony ZV-E10. Now we're going to be comparing these three cameras in a few different categories to find out which one comes out on top. So let's begin with the Canon R7. So why should you pick this camera over the other two? Well, to start with, it has better continuous shooting at highest resolution, coming in at 30 frames per second. Now it also has something called pixel shift shot. Now I do really like this. Now the camera can take a series of shots, shifting through the sensor slightly with each one. These can then be combined to create an extremely high resolution image. It's particularly useful for things like photographing artwork, so if that is something that you do or you like to do, then the R7 might just be the way to go. Now let's move on to the Sony a7 IV. So why should you pick the Sony a7 IV over the other two? Well, to start with, it has more focus points, coming in at 759 focus points. Now, the more focus points, the more flexibility in picking which part of the scene to focus on. They also give the image sensor a better probability in identifying the right area of the scene to focus on in more automatic modes. So that's really important to know there. Now another thing that I like about this camera is its battery. It does actually have the best battery out of all three, coming in at 2280 milliamps per hour, and that might be something to consider, especially if you're somebody who likes to do long shoots. Maybe you're shooting a wedding, for example. A better battery might be really helpful there. Now again, with the Sony a7 IV, something that I really like is the movie bitrate, coming in at 600 Mbps. Now the higher the movie recording bitrate, the better the movie quality, with more and crisper details and less compression artifacts. So if you're more of a videographer rather than a photographer, the Sony a7 IV might just be the way to go. Now let's move on to the Sony ZV-E10. Now I know what you're thinking, how can the Sony ZV-E10 compete with these other two cameras? Well, it does so in a couple of categories and one in particular. Now first off, it's quite a bit lighter than the other two, only coming in at 343 grams. But I believe the main area that this camera wins out on is the bang for your buck that you're getting. Now, this camera is fantastic for beginners and somebody who's just starting out in this world. Maybe you've just started a YouTube channel and you're looking for your first really good camera. This would definitely be the way to go. It's fantastic. Now, out of all three of them, I think if you're more of a photographer, you're probably going to be looking at the R7. If you're more of a videographer, you're probably going to be looking at the Sony a7 IV. And if you're somebody who's just starting out in this world, maybe you've just started a YouTube channel, the Sony ZV-E10 would be the perfect way to go. But all three of them are fantastic and I can recommend them all.